This episode of What the Tech is brought to you by Molecule. Molecule is reimagining the future of clean air, starting with the air purifier. For 10% off your first air purifier, visit molecule.com. That's molekulE.com and enter the promo code Andrew10 at checkout.
What the tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by the one-man gang, Paul Thurrott.
How you doing?
How are you?
How are you doing? I feel like I haven't talked to you in a month.
I know, dude. It's been wild. Between having the kids at home, getting work done from home, getting work done at my house from home, it's been a freaking nightmare. Just so many moving parts at the same time. It's been nuts. I mean, there's been not one moment of downtime. And you would imagine, right? People are thinking like, you're at home and you can't do anything. There's no restaurants. It's way worse.
No, there's a mental weight too that I think people don't explicitly understand. That we do have more time, probably, right? I mean, if we're being honest about it, but there's this. Mentally, it's just hard to, even when you do have free time, it's hard to.
It's very hard.
Feel big about anything or, get anything done. It's awful.
Well, I mean, for you, it had to have been weird because last week was Build, right?
Yeah.
And normally you're there for this.
I know. I was just telling my wife, a year ago, this past week and this week, we flew to Vancouver, hung out with Richard Campbell up at his lake house, which was amazing. Richard and I drove down to Seattle for Build. My wife flew home, spent the week in Seattle for Build, which is fantastic. It's like a family reunion. Flew home. I think it was home for about a day. We drove up to Rochester to see my son's associate graduation. Drove home, was home for a couple of days, and then flew to Miami for VeeamON. And we were there. I was there with work, with everybody, Brad and everybody, 3 days, 4 days, whatever it was. And then Stephanie flew down and we spent a couple of days, hanging out in Miami. And then we were home for like a week and we went to DC for another work day. It was like, it just kind of was like bang, bang, bang. And then this year, we've walked around the neighborhood. We've watched a lot of TV. It's been a little different.
What are you going to do? It is, I've been just, I've been doing a social day. Like, there's no restaurants open, so where the hell are you going to go? But I've been having some people over, I'm having.
We've started doing a little bit of, that live person social distancing.
You gotta. I mean, it just, it's interesting because for many, many years, I work from home, right? For many, many years. And that your whole career is based on this. Same concept. We work from home, so we don't tend to go out, but it's something I thought I would adjust to this way better, considering how everything I do is online. My businesses are online. I could communicate via email. I could have conferences via video. I didn't think it would affect me as much, and I'm kind of at the end of this whole thing, this experiment at this point. I can't.
So I don't know. What's your? Do you guys have a roadmap for when things start to open? I mean, do you have a date yet?
Oh, are you saying that our great mayor, this amazing mayor that we have in the city that does everything so well,
he's a gangster, Andrew. He's a gangster.
I know. Do you think he has a roadmap? There's no plan. This guy's the most incompetent bureaucrat ever. There's no plan. They have no plan. They don't even know if we're gonna open next week or the week after. They have no clue.
Okay. Yeah.
We're
going to go to, I think I don't know which states are involved, but New England, New York, Pennsylvania, and probably New Jersey,
Delaware,
and possibly other states. Delaware. Yeah. I don't know the whole list, but we're on the same system, and I haven't paid too much attention to what it is because honestly, like the Lehigh Valley, which on a like per capita basis has had a higher death rate from coronavirus than anything other than the Philadelphia County, whatever that's called. It might be called Philadelphia. Is going to go yellow next Friday. I think it is on the 5th, whatever day that is. And my wife said, restaurants are going to be able to have like outdoor seating,
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's fantastic. There is no way I'm going to a restaurant on June 5th in this place. Like, there's just way too many people here. I would never trust to be doing the right thing. Yeah. And it will be mobbed, Yeah. So I was like, well, maybe on July 5th, we can start talking about this because there's just no way.
Listen, the first couple of weeks, you don't want to be anywhere, but we're all in the same boat here together, boys and girls. All of us are kind of dealing with this, but there is a lot of tech to talk about. I've been working on a couple projects here at the house, which has been going really great for me. And this is the cool thing, right? I rediscovered a lot of these things that I never completed, like running network cables, changing changing this, those upgrades that you kind of push back. So I want to talk about a little bit about that. Obviously, I want to talk about a couple Windows 10 builds with you and a whole lot more. Before we continue, guys, I do want to thank our great sponsor. This is a sponsor that I've been talking about for a long time, and one of the most used products in my house, which is cool to say. When you're doing these live reads, a little behind the scenes stuff, you're talking about a product, and you're pitching a product essentially, right? You're talking about it. It's so easy for me to talk about these things because a lot of the stuff that we advertise here on the show, I use daily, and this product, Molecule, is one of those products that I have two of at this point, and I intend on getting a third one because this is probably the best air purifier that I've ever used, and I have severe environmental allergies, and I'm not even going to go into the talking points here with this, but it's dreadful, right? From, I would say, April on till till it gets warm, I am suffering. In tremendous pain with my eyes, my nose. This year, I hooked up two of these. So I have a Molecule in my bedroom. I have the small one, the Molecule Mini, and I have the bigger one in my living room right now. And holy moly, this thing is unbelievable. I have not suffered this year, and I used it consistently. So what I was doing last year, I would move this thing from the first floor to the basement because I felt the basement needed it. And I would feel, after a couple of days of removing it, my eyes would be on fire again. So I moved it to the living room permanently, and it's been a breeze. Here's a great thing. You get 10% off your first air purifier if you go to molecule.com. That's MOLEKULE.com, and use the promo code Andrew10 at checkout. The thing that makes this very different is the technology that's used. It has breakthrough Pico technology across a wide range of products provided that you're purifying this way more than a HEPA filter, essentially. That was developed in the 1940s. What Molecule is able to do is get more of the particles in the air, way more of it. It collects it does large pollutants, obviously. The small stuff like mold, viruses, bacteria, volatile organic chemicals. They go right through a HEPA filter. Not with the technology that Molecule is using. It's able to grab a lot of these particles that are in the air, a lot of these pollutants that are in the air. And I've seen a first-hand account of what it does. I absolutely love these guys. I know many people in my personal life that has bought this because they come to my house and I constantly praise it. And I definitely recommend this. If you're in the market for an air purifier, this is the way to go. They also have the big one, the Molecule, and then have the Molecule Mini for smaller rooms like offices, bedrooms, things like that. Go to molecule.com and use the offer code Andrew10 at checkout and get 10% off your first air purifier purchase. That's molecule.com and enter Andrew10 at checkout. Paul.
Yes, sir.
So where do you want to begin? I wanted to talk about 21H1, but before that, let's go into 2004. It's now available. Okay. If you wanted, I guess you could force the update, correct? You could attempt the update.
You could attempt to force it, yeah. So they're doing something a little different this time where they're actually going to roll it out in a staged way, even for people who seek for it and meet the compatibility requirements.
Yeah.
So in the past, they would block you if, maybe you had a Wi-Fi driver that, didn't work with the latest release, whatever it was. This time they're actually going to stage it slowly. So for most people, if you really wanted to get it, you just Google download Windows 10. You'll find the ISO tool. You can create setup media and you could install it that way. But I mean, obviously most people should just wait until They get it naturally.
So I have a question for you. So this build took a long time to release, correct?
Yep. Yeah, it was. They finalized the feature set back in December, actually.
Okay.
And then they've spent the next 5.5 months releasing cumulative updates, which are bug fixes and security fixes. Part of that was to get the release aligned with how they release Azure, because Windows and Azure are on the same backend. And then part of it, honestly, I think the past 30 days has been about the COVID stuff. And I think they just wanted to, make sure that it met this extra level of reliability, because God, could you imagine right in the middle of this pandemic, they start pushing out a major Windows update.
Oh God.
And then things go wrong. So
how are you going to support it? Yeah.
Yep.
What were the big updates to this? Obviously there's a lot of small stuff on the back end, but what's the takeaway?
Yeah. So the biggest ones to me, and these are all power user features, frankly. The biggest one probably of all is the Windows Subsystem for Linux version 2 is now available. And this is the one that uses an actual Linux kernel. That is a Microsoft Linux kernel, which is kind of interesting in its own way. Before, the Linux subsystem was basically an emulation environment, which kind of hindered performance a bit. So this has better compatibility and performance, and it's not available today, but sometime over the next few months, and possibly maybe the next version of Windows, but you're actually going to be able to run Linux graphical applications on top of this. To date, it's been command line apps only officially. I mean, there have been workarounds for that, but so that's the big thing. And then I would say the other big power user feature is Windows Virtual Desktops now have features like the ability to retain the layouts that you create. You can provide them with names, and so they survive reboots and so forth. So before you could kind of make them, but then you would reboot and they would disappear. But now they're retained.
Interesting.
So those are the big ones, I would say.
Yeah. And the phone feature, right? That's a
that one's not. It's not 100% tied to the version of Windows 10, but yeah, they've been updating the Europhone app. Yeah. Which has turned into one of the best things about Windows 10, I would say.
It's interesting. I did not think so many people would use it, but it seems like people are very much into this using your phone app on this.
Yeah.
I'm curious why over the last what was the feature that kind of brought people into wanting to use it so much?
Well, remember, so I think the reason it's become so popular is that it's gotten so much better over time. When they first announced it, I don't remember exactly, but I want to say you could get your 25 most recent photos, I think it was. You could get your text messages, and you could get notifications. So in other words, if any app posted a notification on your phone, it would kind of come over to the computer, which I think is kind of an annoyance, frankly, but whatever. Over time, though, so first of all, they implemented all that stuff. That took some time. But I should say, too, this is only on Android, unfortunately. The Europhone app is next to useless on an iPhone, unfortunately. Yeah. But they expanded the photo capability, so it's much more than just 25 photos. I don't know if it's the whole photo collection, it might be, but it's certainly a lot more than 25. They added phone calling, which I think might be the big one that put it over the top for people. So using whatever microphone and speakers and so forth you have on your computer, you can make and receive calls through your computer over using the phone. I think that's an exciting thing. There's screen sharing. So you can run, you basically see a window that is your phone. So you can, if you have a touchscreen, you can touch it. If not, you can use a mouse, run applications and so forth. And then I don't think this is widely available, but there's a media playback feature that's coming where if you have an app like Spotify or whatever, you can from Windows play Spotify from your phone and access, whatever's on the phone. So they've just kind of, and there's probably some other things. This is off the top of my head, so I might be forgetting one or two features, but it's pretty incredible. I mean, it turned from like a curiosity into, oh, this is actually really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice.
So you could force a download, but
you can look for it. So if you go to Windows Update, check for updates, you might get it.
So I want to jump into another release that's getting a lot of coverage right now. It's 21H1. What's the latest one for this? Obviously, you published an article. FastRing is switching to Windows 10 21H1 in late June.
Yeah, in June.
Is this the big update for them as far as implementing a lot of the stuff that they've held off on, like the new, I guess, more Linux integration, obviously, and things like that. there's a lot of rumblings about this version compared to the one that we just got.
So, we can only speculate. So we know that, before that, 20H2 will happen. The development of 20H2, which is the one that will come out in the fall, is pretty much done, right? So there will probably be a few more builds. They'll kind of finalize the code, and then they'll do the same thing.
It's a smaller release. It's a minor release.
Yeah. And this will be delivered like a cumulative update. So it won't be a massive upgrade. It's just a kind of a fine tuning on top of what we see with 2004. I think the reason people are interested in 20H1 right now is because Microsoft just pulled back on Windows 10X, and what they've decided to do is two things. First, to test Windows 10X for longer, which means we might be able to get tested as part of the Windows Insider program, which would be really exciting, and to do so on normal computers, right? Remember, originally they said it was for dual screen devices only, but now they're saying, actually, we're going to do this on normal.
What was the reason that they shifted that? I don't think we spoke about that. The shift over, because originally that was a big push, but now are they starting to realize that maybe sustainability in that market for dual screen devices may not be there for them, and it's a waste if you're developing it exclusively for that?
Yeah, we have to semi speculate on this. What we've heard rumor wise is the underlying, the foundation of this thing, something called Core OS or Windows Core, is not as far along as they had hoped it was going to be. It's not as stable. It doesn't work as well. There are huge compatibility problems and big performance problems with the new container system, which impacts traditional apps, Win32 apps, desktop apps. And that's not ready. And I think that, like what you hinted at, is part of it too. The dual screen thing was always fake. Windows 10X was never designed to be only on dual screen devices. But
why push that? Why make that
because it was a way to get it out in the world in a limited fashion, because they really need to test. Windows 10X is if this thing works, will be the future of Windows, right? And I think they want to get this one right. And the point of doing dual screen is that it would limit the audience, and they don't have to cause any suffering with normal users, because only early adopters would have bought this thing. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just the quality issues with the product. It just demanded delaying it. It's like, well, if we're going to delay it, why would you just put it on normal PCs like it was going to be anyway, and let people test it, and then we can get this thing right. Like, let's actually get it right. So I think the hope is, if they switch over to 20H1 in June, late June, in the Insider program, maybe we'll have the opportunity to test 10X. The other possibility, by the way, is that they bring that container architecture to mainstream Windows 10 for testing, right? And again, you have, there's supposedly 19 million, whatever it is, Windows Insiders. There's about 1 million people who are actually actively testing stuff. That's still a pretty good body of testing. And they'll get feedback, and they'll, because people will say, hey, there's this app, I really need it. Does not work in this environment. And then they'll build up a database of that stuff and hopefully get the product right.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited for that. I was talking to a friend of ours, a friend of mine that you've met before, and he was asking about it. He was like, ask Paul about this. I kind of alluded. I'm like, I don't think the intention for this is dual screen devices. I think obviously they're going to release dual screen devices, but the sheer amount of people that are in that market looking for it, it may not be there. And I was talking to somebody on the marketing side of not Microsoft, but it's one of the big names that we constantly talk about here. I don't want to reveal too much.
Yeah.
But he was saying that, from the concept point to the execution, once sales gets a hold of what you're doing and once marketing gets a hold of it, now you're no longer appealing to the demo that the developers were working on, because you need to make this work. You need to make this profitable. So how do you do that, right? How do you take a dual screen device and an operating system intended, and I'm using quotes here, intended for dual screen devices, and make it profitable? You probably can't. And he said for many years, this was a fascinating conversation. For many years, a lot of these companies, Dell, HP, even Microsoft, Apple, they went based on the wow factor for these hardware. Wow, I need an iPad. An iPad is a great example of this. An iPad was a device that nobody needed, but everybody wanted because it was different. Right? It was a different product, And I'm not saying everybody, but pretty much everybody. I mean, I can't tell you someone that doesn't have an iPad too.
Right.
You know, just to think about that.
The iPad found a niche. There's no doubt about it. And
but it's harder to break through that today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Much harder.
Well, especially, you know, I think there's also a realism with what's happening with the COVID stuff that, you know, people are working from home. They kind of just need to get work done, you know. So there's less experimentation right now. There's less interest in wacky form factors, you know. Just need to get work done here. And so that work's going to get done on maybe a computer you already had at the house, or maybe the work provided with you with, or,
you just want to get it
you know,
done,
in some cases. Yeah. But or maybe you have to buy one because the stuff you have is so out of date. You know, you're not taking a risk at that point. You just look, I want a laptop. I just got to get work done.
Listen, most interesting
this is
thing
not
here,
the time.
The most interesting change here, right, has been how these the video conferencing softwares out there on what a tremendous improvement in such a short period of time for all of them, right? Including Zoom, Microsoft Teams, which I'm blown away by how they've been. I'm using Teams constantly now, and I never did before, and I like Teams.
I do too for the most part. Although you can see it getting complex, kind of like a typical successful Microsoft product.
I'm going to give you a great example. Example of something I never thought I would see, and this is so inside baseball for radio guys and podcasting guys. Some of you may find this boring, but this is an example of how companies are rapidly adapting to the moment. In Zoom, they added a feature for essentially turning off echo cancellation and making the connection a full duplex connection. So it takes all the stuff that it does so you don't hear feedback and all this, you know, having a conversation back. I'm simplifying this unnecessarily. But what they've done, they've allowed advanced features with the audio. Why would they do that now? Because millions more people are using the software. They're adding stereo support in Zoom. They're adding essentially full duplex. Mix minusing is done on your own. Echo suppression, echo cancellation, automatic gain adjustment. You could turn all these features off. I have been an advocate for how many years to Skype and to Zoom and to all these services, begging for this service, begging for this. And they've told me, oh, no, we can't do it because our user base won't know what to do. It's too much for our user base. All of a sudden now, when enough people are asking, they get it done easily, simply.
Well, I mean, what you're describing is like a war footing. You know, it's like during World War II, the steel mills were pumping out, you know, destroyers and all kinds of boats and armaments and cannons and things at some crazy rate. Like, you know, they would just make these things in a day, you know, like the auto industry probably did this. You know, and I know, just speaking for Microsoft, I mean, I had gotten a hold of an internal memo where they were like, look, this is going down. We know certain markets are going to be, you know, needing stuff. And we know that certain markets are just going to kind of go away, maybe temporarily, maybe permanently. And we're going to put all our resources in the stuff where it matters. And so people who are working on like a small business thing, that's not going to matter to anybody right now. We're like, yep, you're not doing that anymore. We'll talk about this in February next year. You're moving over to this thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, people at Microsoft, and I'm sure elsewhere, they're just kind of rallying around the stuff that is necessary. And so change is happening. And you're right. I mean, it's been amazing just in the past 3 months. What they've added to Teams is crazy. It probably is as much as they had added to it in the previous 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah, definitely 2-3 years.
You know.
And this, you know, it's not just Microsoft. It's essentially everybody, right?
Yeah, I know. I just happen to have that example. So but I'm sure it's the whole industry. Yeah.
Even FaceTime they've updated for video conferencing.
When's the last time they updated FaceTime? You know,
I can't remember the last. Well, I think what is it? How many people does it support now? Like 100 people.
Yeah,
I mean,
they did.
Something obscene. So I mean, listen, it's a positive in a strange way. It's a positive that they're doing this due to demand, which is always that's the way it should be, right? Or they should do it without all the demand. Just add the simple feature.
You could make that argument.
On the media consumption side, HBO Max is live, Paul.
You know what? I feel like these guys are losing the script a little bit. Maybe there should be a service called HBO. Why do they have all these different things?
They have HBO, HBO Max,
Go Now,
HBO Go,
Max.
HBO Now. So what they've done, this is for people who don't know, it's not just HBO. This crosses, it's a combination of essentially AT&T and Time Warner properties. You're getting numerous streaming providers in one with the service. It's $15 a month, and you have a tremendous library with this. And I'm very curious how this is going to work for them, because not only do you get obviously everything on HBO, you're getting all the Warner assets, including syndication, right? Syndicated products.
Yeah, like Friends is on this, right?
Friends is on there. Yeah, you have Friends on there, and then you get all the Cartoon Network stuff. You're getting Turner Classics.
Right.
I'm very curious how this does.
I mean, it's a tough time to launch something like this in some ways, but then again, we're home with nothing to do. It feels to me like what they've done is come out of the gate with a credible Netflix competitor, right? Because the thing about Netflix is over time, they've gotten a body of original content that rivals kind of the best of what HBO has offered. And then, of course, they have all this other garbage and other things and shows and, a lot of European crime shows and whatever it is. And so it seems like out of the gate, HBO Max is up there, because when you look at like Disney Plus doesn't really compete on that level. They're a very specific kind of service. Apple TV Plus just doesn't have enough content, but that's their aspiration. Hulu is probably the closest thing, or maybe Amazon Prime Video. But like a lot of people listening, watching this. I mean, you spend time, and we have spent time going through the different services looking for stuff to watch, and for like hour-long nightly TV type stuff. Yeah. I mean, Hulu and Amazon aren't quite there. There's a couple of good shows on each, but it's not like Netflix, And so, maybe there's room for an HBO Max. But
so here's a gripe that I have.
So many offerings.
Yeah,
it's just weird.
It's so many. But here's my issue. Like, it doesn't have 4K. No 4K, no HDR, no Dolby Atmos.
And that was just because of the current conditions, and they're worried about.
No, it just wasn't part of their road. It's part of their roadmap, but it wasn't on their release.
Did they intend to release this originally in 1997 or something? Because it seems like you would need that stuff today. We just watched 4K. We just watched Homecoming as an Amazon show. We just started watching season 2.
Like,
it's in 4K.
I would immediately. I'll give you a great example. I would subscribe to this tomorrow if it was Game 4K. Of Thrones was on there in 4K. I would love to watch Game of Thrones again in 4K.
Yeah, that's right. That's very interesting.
Right, that's the one that you would want to see, because really it's not available in 4K digitally. To be honest, it's
right.
I think I've seen some stuff in 4K, but nothing. Nothing tremendous. They have an opportunity here to kind of come in. They have to be. I mean, not to do 4K in 2020 is mind-boggling.
It's crazy.
And
by the way, there's other scripts. They're not on Roku or Amazon Fire TV.
Yeah,
out of the gate.
Yeah. Right? So,
I mean, guys, what are you doing? Those are the number 1 and 2 devices. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. So they came out. I'm curious if they're going to get into sports here, because that is something that they are fiddling with. They have BR Live, which is Turner's live sport streaming service. It's mostly soccer and wrestling right now. That's all they have.
I was going to say, I've never even heard of this.
BR Live is, so they have a lot of European soccer on there. They have some.
They need Turner Classic Sports.
Turner Classics, but I mean, I would love to watch old Atlanta baseball.
Sure. Golfing from the 1960s.
Yeah, they have an opportunity. I just don't know if there's too many streaming providers. And one thing that you're seeing here, though, you're seeing a lot of these powerhouses combining their assets. Like DC Universe, which is DC's streaming service. They have, by the way, one of my new favorite streaming services. Phenomenal content on there. Yeah, it's great.
What's on there?
For me, it's a lot of like the old DC animated series.
Oh, yeah. Like Justice League of America.
Yeah, so they have Justice League. They got the Batman animated series. That was remarkable. And then they have all the movies that they have. Like, they have some very adult rated R Batman movies, which is like animated movies. Cartoons.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep.
So it's cool to see it on there, but now it's if you have if you have HBO Max, it's part of that. It's bundled. Same thing with Cartoon Network. Same thing with a lot of they've bundled them, and I think you're going to start seeing a lot of this. You're going to start seeing some of these properties bundling their assets to make sense of a $15 a month plan.
Yeah, I mean, the bar is really high right now. Like I said, I mean, you have to compete against Netflix somehow, and that's not something most companies can do. So it looks to me like HBO might be able to pull it off.
Well, they have
We'll
friends,
see. I'm not.
so that's what matters.
They have friends, yeah.
That's the big selling point here.
I don't care about friends, but yeah,
they need friends. I'm trying to find my note here. I lost my note. Jeez. Oh, so here's something, Paul. I know that last week we spoke about this. I'm in the process. I want to build out a new machine for my production machine. I have to tell you, I'm having a very difficult time finding the components that I want.
Yeah, I heard this is a problem.
This is a big problem. I like, for example, Intel's releasing their 10th gen lineup, which looking at it, you're not really seeing a tremendous improvement from the 9th gen for the higher end chipsets. There's some stuff, but the availability is going to be very limited, right? As far as it's going to sell out quickly, whatever is available.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. And I don't know when that gets fixed. It seems like the supply chain stuff should have cleaned up by now or cleared up or whatever. But yeah, this might be a months long issue. I don't know if this is like really important, it has to happen now. I mean, I don't know what you do there. You might have to just buy a system,
Just buy. Well, here's the other thing, right? We're coming close to WWDC.
Yeah.
Right. We have. How are they going to do that? And that kind of sets tone for the next event that they have. Apple's going to be faced with numerous issues for the supply chain.
Yeah, I don't think they've publicly acknowledged it. They mentioned it in passing, I think, in their earnings. I mean, the iPhone stuff this fall will be delayed. It could be delayed further than people believe. I mean, it might even be delayed till early next year. I guess we'll see. But I don't know. I mean, this stuff has to bounce back at some point,
Yeah, it's hopefully sooner than later. Xbox Series. Let's see the backwards compatibility on their next device. Do you want a Series X? Series X.
Yeah,
I can't talk.
I know.
It's set for holiday 2020, obviously, but they went over some details on backwards compatibility.
Yeah, so Microsoft, since they kind of lost the current gen console war, they've really kind of backtracked and rethought things, and they're focusing on kind of building the best possible gamer ecosystem, and a big chunk of that is the preserving your game library, bringing it forward. And so with Xbox One, for example, one of the things we see is that there are over 500 games, mostly Xbox 360 games, that play on the Xbox One through backward compatibility. And if you bought one of those digitally, you get that automatically. It's part of your library. It's nice. The cooler thing in some ways, though, is that most of those games are actually better on Xbox One as well. So the graphics will be better, the speed will be better, whether it's loading screens or the frame rate will be better, whatever it might be. And some games, they also do that enhanced for Xbox One X thing, where we have an Xbox One game that actually plays better on Xbox One X as well.
So So what are they doing exactly with that?
Well, I mean, when you move forward to the Series X, what they want to do is continue those themes for Xbox. I'm sorry, Xbox One Series X, Xbox Series X, which is, I think it was an Xbox One, but so all your games are going to come forward. So everything that was backward compatible before will work. Everything on Xbox One will work. Everything will play better. So no matter what game it is, it will do something better. It will load faster. It will run faster, meaning faster frame rates. They're actually going to add HDR graphics to some Xbox 360 games, which is crazy. So you might have games that are over a decade old that will suddenly look amazing again on this new console. And so, basically this is really the Xbox promise. And when they get into Project xCloud, you're going to see this kind of language again. They really want to make sure that they preserve the library that you have, that you preserve the investment you made. And so in the Xbox One timeframe especially, you have people that primarily probably were buying games digitally. And so, the problem with the 360 was a lot of those games were sold on disc. And unfortunately for Microsoft, a lot of those disk drives they had in the systems were bad. And the game discs got scratched and there were all, there were all those problems. But if you go digital, and you can buy games digitally still today for Xbox 360 if you want to, all this stuff comes forward. And I that's what they announced today. I mean, it's just this compatibility promise. And it's, by the way, stands in sharp contrast to what Sony is saying, which is in a future update, we will provide a way for PS5 consoles to play PS4 games. That's what they're saying. It's like, okay, so that's cool. But out of the gate, like Xbox Series X will have a really good compatibility story.
No, that's good to know, because I know a lot of people listen. That's a major
problem.
I
mean, that's their whole check.
You have all this stuff invested in the product, right. And you know, what are you going to do? It just goes, you got to keep the other device, or you don't play it. Most of the time, people, I mean, from experience, once I get the new console, I rarely play the older one, right? That's how it is.
Yeah, right. I mean, in recent weeks, I mostly play Call of Duty games, of course, but I've gone back and been playing the multiplayer from some Xbox 360 era Call of Duty games. Still people in there, still people playing. I don't know if they're all on actual Xbox 360s, but I do that from an Xbox One. It works great. It's nice.
Looks great. All right, Paul. We did a quick show today. We're gonna wrap it up here. Anything nice. I missed?
We didn't talk about Build.
Yes. Let's go into that before we wrap it up.
But I mean, just quickly, I mean, Build is Microsoft's developer show. So there were a couple of interesting things from this event. The first one is you mentioned WWDC. It's going to be a virtual event. I think Build provides a blueprint for how other companies can do these what used to be big conferences in person and hold them virtually. Microsoft did a really good job at this. For me personally, the past few builds have been tough because Microsoft, of course, is pushing forward with Azure and all this cloud stuff. And I'm sure that's all very interesting and profitable to shareholders and whatnot, but it's not really what I'm interested in. And so this past week, with the Build 2020, there was actually a lot of Windows 10 and client stuff and good stuff too. It was very interesting. So they're providing a way forward for developers who write Win32 desktop apps or the newer UWP apps, and they're going to combine those things into a single, I'll call it a platform. I'm not sure what else to call it, a set of frameworks for developers, and that's cool. It's not going to happen this year, but next year, Microsoft will have something called .NET MAUI, which is not a code name. It actually stands for like multi-application user interface or something like that. But it's a way to write an app that will run on Windows or the Mac or Android or iOS.
Very cool.
From a single code base. So similar to Flutter. That's very interesting, right? And we'll have to hold on and see what that looks like. But it's based on Xamarin. It's the next version of Xamarin Forms, if you're familiar with that technology. They released the new Windows Terminal, Windows Subsystem for Linux, which is part of that new version, Windows 10. That got that's where they announced the GUI stuff. Fluid Framework, which is this kind of cloud-based Olay, if you remember that, a COM or whatever, where Microsoft back in Windows 95 and Office 95, you could have compound documents where you put a Excel spreadsheet inside of a Word document. And when you clicked in the spreadsheet, the Excel stuff came up and it was like, kind of a combination of the two. They're going to support that over the internet. Not that exact thing, but something very much like that. So it was just a lot of stuff. It was a big show, and I spent a good chunk of days in a row just watching stuff live. I spent a lot of the past weekend watching sessions. I wasn't able to see live. I still have a lot to do.
Did you consume a lot of information more from Build not being there?
Yeah, because actually, I will say, I've complained about this in the past. I love these shows, and Build is my favorite. And I love, going there and being with people that I get to see only a couple times a year. It's like a family reunion. I really do enjoy that stuff. We have meetups and parties and events, and it's all great. But the thing I've always complained about, and this is especially true of Build, I am very interested in the subject matter, and I would love to go as a normal person, an attendee, and just go to sessions. I've always wanted to do that, and I never can because our schedules are just too busy. Well, this year, I could. And so like a lot of other people, I watched sessions live as they were happening over Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, although I think Thursdays were mostly replays. And then I watched them after the fact. Years past, I'd come back from Build, and sometimes if I was lucky, I could download a few sessions and watch them on the plane ride home. But usually the weekend after, I do what I just did, which is, go to mybuild.microsoft.com, see what the sessions are, new tab, the things I want to watch, and kind of plow through them one at a time. Yeah. So, I mean, on that level, it was nice. I mean, I miss not seeing people, but it was nice to kind of see, Build like a attendee would see it,
Yeah. I think that's the future of these conferences. I think the
too.
days of having, 40, 50, 60,000 people, 100,000 people go to a conference over 3 days, I think those days are gone for the time being.
So Build, I don't remember how much it costs, but if you're an attendee, it could be anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000, whatever it is. It's a lot of money, right? Yeah. And a lot of these people fly from all over the world. I would imagine it won't happen next year, but maybe 2022 after that, Build and events like Build, there'll be an in-person component, right? So they'll have some, maybe 5,000 people went to Seattle for Build in the past. Maybe in the future it'll be like 1,000. It'll be in a smaller venue, maybe, but they'll still do this online component. So concurrent with what's happening live, there'll be this like a online version that will, hopefully will be free if they're smart. They make it free, and people who want to maintain social distancing, because maybe we haven't solved COVID yet, or for other reasons, whatever, will be able to attend these things virtually. And so as a company, like when they think about sending people to a conference, it's expensive. So maybe they have like one C-level executive that goes for the meetings and stuff. And then the engineering staff, they spend those days in front of their computers watching the sessions and taking notes and doing whatever they do.
I was thinking about this, right? With like NAB, right? Big conference, big conference in Vegas. Or let's talk about CES. If this virus had hit, a couple months before.
Well, by the way, there is a theory that it did. And
I'm sure it did. I'm sure people got it.
Well, that the reason it was so bad in the United States was because of CES.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just didn't realize it at the time.
Just, it's an incubator for these things. It really is. I mean, I call it the con.
Everything from the plane you're on to the gross hotel room you're in to the wall-to-wall people, and not to mention, not to be a jerk about Vegas, but I mean, spare me. The place is a giant Petri dish. It's like the perfect storm for unhealthiness.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I look, I can't say for sure. I never say never, but I don't anticipate ever going to CES again, ever.
Yeah. I same here, Paul. All right, guys, that's it for this week. Guys, if you listen to this, obviously, or watching this on YouTube, head on over to patreon.com/whatthetech. You could go to patreon.com/whatthetech and fund us there as little as $1 per episode. We're going to do our bonus show right after this. You get us for another 15 minutes or so of just talking about anything that comes to mind. That's the fun part of this. There's no script. There's no set topic. We just talk about life and something I really enjoy doing with Paul. So you could get a sneak peek at the behind-the-scenes stuff, obviously, and conversations Paul and I are having by going to patreon.com/whatthetech. Get access to our bonus shows. Also, all things Paul, go to Thurrott.com. You guys have a tremendous amount of articles there. That's my main source for tech news every single day. That's the first site I go to. It's tech without the clutter, I like to say about your site, Paul. Tech without the clutter. Without the nonsense. I love it. And you and Brad do a tremendous job, and everybody else there, tremendous job. Guys, that's it for this week. You can follow me on Twitter @AndrewZarian. You can follow Paul @TheRot. Take care.